In 1999, Sun Microsystems came out with the Sunray line of thin clients. These little units require connectivity back to a server running the Sunray server software to function. The server would typically run Solaris, Sun's Unix variant. Today, we're going to incorporate them into the retro rack. I've got a pile of late 90s to early 2000s networking gear in there, and I'd like to be able to use my Sunrays on that network. The server will be the Sun Fire V240. We'll get it incorporated into the retro rack network and fight with an MRV console server to manage it over the network remotely. We'll also explore the dual head feature of the Sunray 2FS, allowing it to use more than one screen, and we'll go through a step-by-step tutorial to assign system users to what are called Smartcards. These Smartcards allow you to do something called hot desking, pulling the card out and restoring your session on another Sunray. Let's get into it. On the bench today, we've got an assortment of Sun Microsystems Sunray thin clients. These would sit at a workstation for someone to do work on, but they're not full-blown computers. So on the back, we of course have the usual ports for a monitor, the network, USB, so the mouse and keyboard, and power of course, but everything happens over the network. These little guys require a server hosting the Sunray server software, and in my case it is a Sun Fire V240, which will be doing that for us today. The server is going to be running Solaris, but you can also run it on Linux. I've never done that. I'd like to do a video about that in the future. Solaris was Sun's Unix variant that would have definitely been used by these back in the day. This is a Sunray 1, came out in 1999. They went into the mid to late 2000s, I think. I think these were kind of 05, 06 era. They also came out with a Sunray 1G, and I think its defining characteristic was the display resolution was higher than this original Sunray 1. Now, I'll show you all the physical characteristics of these things in detail. They're all a little bit different, and there are many different variations of Sunrays. This is only about like half of what I own anyway. Me personally, they made all sorts of different like all-in-one things like this Sunray 270. In fact, to drive the point home about it being a thin client, it wants a server, let's power this one up because it happens to have a screen. It's easier to deal with. And I'll show you what it does when you just power it up and it's off searching for a server. I don't know where any of my power adapters are for these. I'll be right back. This guy wants 12 volts, 5 amps. We're going to hit it with the old Wi-Fi universal power adapter, only the best. At least any of the Sunrays I have, none of them have power buttons, like a power switch. They're meant to be on, basically you take them out of the box and they're on forever, is my understanding. The Wi-Fi is just blinking at me. That seems bad. There you go. You can do it. Okay. Here we go. So it is off looking for a server, and obviously I don't have anything other than the power connected to it. It's not going to get very far. It's just going to keep looping. Eventually we might see some complaints. These error messages, I think you can look them up online. That might be an init message, but eventually it might even complain that it can't find a server. We'll see. Sun had such good branding. It's half the reason I like these things. So a few moments later, no progress has been made. It's not going to find a server, of course. This thing kind of moves around as a screensaver, which is kind of nice. Yeah, there you go. Let's put him out of the way for now and look at some of these other ones. So this is the original Sunray 1. This was donated to the channel by the guys over at the Serial Port a very long time ago. And I think the Sunray project started as something else called Newt or something, and eventually was commercialized as this Sunray line of thin clients from Sun. On the back, we've got what's probably 100 megabit Ethernet, an AC jack. So this one has a power supply internal to it. This one is having trouble, so it'll run for a little bit and then kind of lock up and the screen will go some sort of weird color. As I recall, that kind of smells like capacitors to me, power supply capacitors. So I'll have to get in here and do a recap eventually. 4 USB ports, VGA port. Then we've got this video in for a web camera that I'd love to get my hands on. That'd be ridiculous. And then audio in and out. And you can see it's kind of a awkward form factor to deal with on the desk. There's supposed to be a stand. I'll put a picture up here. They never come with the stand. The stands are all long gone, essentially. On the front, we've got the power indicator. Nice Sun Microsystems name and logo there. A card reader, which we will discuss shortly. And then we've got headphone and microphone in. We might power this one on. Like I was saying, it's having trouble. But you know me, I've got more of these things. A viewer named Luca from Canada donated 2 more of these things, and I fired them up in a Patreon video a long time ago, and they seem to be healthy. It's sort of interesting. I almost don't want to hook these up to my Sunray server. It's got the, as you'll see, the mark of the beast. Oracle's involved by the time the software I'm running came out. And I think these have some pre-Oracle firmware on them. I don't think it's necessarily historically significant. I'm relatively sure a lot of this has been dumped. But what happens is you plug them in and they'll kind of upgrade their firmware to match the server. The server will push it down to the device. And I don't know if you can downgrade. I've never messed with that before. So we might not plug these into my server just yet. But Luca also included something very important. What I imagine is a relatively era-appropriate keyboard for these things. USB, not have a mouse, unfortunately. And Sun used these, Unix workstation keyboards with the funny keys you're not used to. Stop, again, open. What is this one? This is a Type 6 USB, a Sun model Type 6. So relatively late, I think, in the Sun keyboard game. And obviously this one's sun faded, which is fine. That's not Sun... no pun intended. That's not Sun's fault. These keyboards, they're not that good. Like, that one's okay. Enter key's okay. But I really like the look of the Sun keyboards, but if you're like an aficionado of keyboards, I don't know if I would bother with the Sun stuff. I don't give 2 craps about the keyboard I'm using, so fine with me. We'll get this in the mix. And then we've got the Sunray 2. This is probably my favorite Sunray. I have 2 of these, simply because they just work. I've had trouble with all the other form factors in one way or another, and these ones, I shouldn't even say this, famous last words, I haven't fired these on in a long time. They just work. So if you're going to get into the Sunray game, I would hunt down a couple of these. Now they had a Sunray 3, which came out later. Some of them are Oracle branded, maybe all of them. I've heard those are fine too, but I don't happen to have one. So we've got serial port, a DVI this time, not VGA, 100 megabit Ethernet, I believe, and a USB port. Now, there's only one USB on the back, one USB on the front, and I used to complain about that. I was like, have a mouse coming off the back, keyboard coming off the front, what's up with that? But I think it would have been using one of the Sun keyboards that you'd plug in your single USB, and then this one doesn't have it. This is a later model. They had a USB hub inside the keyboard, and so you would have your mouse coming off of that. My example here, of course, is terrible because it doesn't have that, but I think that's the idea with why you'd only have one USB. You'd probably have your keyboard back here, and this would be for whatever peripherals you're dealing with. And then we got this big dog, the Sunray 2FS. It also has a single USB, some audio input and mic, and then on the back, 2 DVIs. So you could do dual head, they called it. 2 monitors. And remember, the server is hosting like an X11 instance or something and dealing with all that and streaming it to the device over the Ethernet jack. 2 USBs on the back. But yeah, these are super cool. This one showed up to me totally destroyed, and I glued it back together and it works fine. That's another reason I like these 2s. They seem to be tough. And this one is a DVT. Let me remind myself what that means, because on the back here you can see it's saying something about regulatory requirements have not been assessed or declared for this device yet. Basically, it's a really early testing unit. Like, I don't want to say prototype, but a really early run, I think. DVT, let me look that up. Design Verification Test. So somewhere in the lifespan of this thing being produced, this one happens to be some sort of early DVT unit, which is kind of cool, which means it probably belonged to Sun, which is not as surprising as you would think. I think Sun themselves were probably the largest deployment of Sunrays back in the day. They never quite took off. In fact, as I recall, this one is a Sunray 270 and definitely belonged to Sun, because when I got it, it had VPN configurations for some Sun endpoints. The Sun VPN at their campus, probably in California. So yeah, a little piece of history here. And you've probably been noticing these card slots. That was for something called hot desking. You would use a Java card, I think they called them back in the day, and you would slide that in. I don't think it's going to do anything now because it doesn't have a server. you would type in your password, it would remember your username, and your session would show up. And then if you wanted to log out, you'd pull the card, pop it in another workstation. Yeah, I confused it. Pop it in another workstation. I think I rebooted it. That was weird. And type in your password, and you're good to go. Now, for like a home lab perspective, I thought it'd be really cool to be able to do that without a password. Obviously, you would never do that in a enterprise environment. And I got it working, and I don't think it works anymore. So once we get these powered up, we'll see if we can get that working again. These Sun branded Java cards were sent in by a former Sun employee in the UK. These were used in the Sun offices for these Sunrays. They use Sunrays for their actual, day-to-day jobs. And these were the only cards I could get to work at all for a long time. And then I found these online, and I went all in and bought 50 of them, I think. And these work. That might be a weird one. These work, but you need to do a little bit of configuration on the server. And in this video, I will show you what I did. So you can get these readily online. I'll put a link to the website down below, not affiliated or anything. They make it a little squirrely to get the configuration you need. It's literally just a text file. But someone else in the Serial Port Discord figured it out. But yeah, you can buy these Java cards and you can do this yourself. You don't have to have the Sun branded ones, as cool as they are. Now, one of the goals in this video is to incorporate all these Sunrays into the retro rack. And to get that working properly, we're going to have to do a little bit of infrastructure work. The retro rack, which has that Sun Fire V240 hosting the server software these Sunrays need, is running a 10.0.0.0 network. These things have never seen that network. I've been running these off my home network, and I'd like to transition them to the retro rack, and that V240, in fact, has never even been properly incorporated into the retro rack. We're going to do that today. I'm also hitting some odd serial console issues with the server and my setup that we'll need to explore. So let's go into the other room and I'll walk you through it. This is the retro rack. It's hosting that 10.0 network. Here's the router, all the switches and everything. And here's our little V240, Sun Fire V240. This hosts the Sunray server software. Now this item right here is a terminal server or a console server, or I'm using it as one anyway. It's got one of these cables coming off the back. It's called an octopus cable. Big connector here, and 8 different RJ45 connectors for serial access. This enterprise gear network and the servers typically have a serial port that you can remotely manage them over. And it's really useful to be able to do that. With this thing, I can do that in the other room. And I'm having this weird issue where this thing will not interact with these. These things have what's called a lights out manager or lights out management, LOM. It's a serial port, just like that, RJ45 serial port, and I cannot interact with it. So for a few hours, I was hitting my head against that and decided we'll just use another terminal server that I have. So I'm going to drag that in the other room, and we'll fire up another Sunfire, and I'll kind of give you a lay of the land about what I'm trying to accomplish. And I think I figured it out. I don't understand it, but I think I figured it out. So let's go do that. Just to illustrate what I'm trying to accomplish in there with the other server, we're going to fire up this Sunfire V240. This is the first Sunfire I ever bought. It's much smaller and much less capable than the ones in there. But on the back, we've got this LOM port, lights out management. It's using the RJ45 form factor, but I usually just plug these Cisco cables in that I would use with my Cisco gear, converts it over to the regular DB9 serial to USB adapter. So we'll try that. And again, this is effectively what I'm trying to do in the other room with my terminal server. One of these is going in here, and usually I can interact with any serial port I wish. I've double checked all the pinouts and everything. And so we're gonna give this power. It's not gonna start up. In fact, it's not gonna make any noise. There is a tiny computer inside this computer that is hosting the lights out management, and it lets me power up this machine, configure some different boot options, things like that. Obviously very useful when you're dealing with a computer that's not physically in the room with you. But this is what I'm trying to accomplish in the other room, and I'm getting no luck. Over here, I'm connected to that serial port with a little USB to serial adapter, and I can press enter, and I'm at the LOM, so I can say help. We can do things like power the machine on, I guess, just to drive it home. We're going to power this machine on, but I can't get any output over my Cisco terminal server, which is very weird. So you'll probably hear this. There it goes. This is the machine actually booting up. I think it's got Solaris something or other on it. I'm going to let it do this, and then I'm going to shut it down and put it back on the shelf. She's a ripper, dude. Checking all 1 gig of RAM. Woo. 648 megahertz. Spark processor. I do like this machine. I need to decide something cool to do with it. But the point is, I can interact with it over the serial console. That's highly desirable when I'm sitting in here and the rack is 15 feet the other direction. And here we are. The machine's on, and I can power it off from here. So hopefully you're following the saga, but at this point in my troubleshooting, which was like a week ago, I decided I'll just try another console server. This is an MRV LX series InReach terminal server. What's the right term? I had been calling them terminal servers, but now in this video I'm starting to call them console servers because they give you a console. But anyway, I think you know what I mean. This thing is pretty sweet. I bought this a long time ago, made by MRV. I think they are technically still around, probably bought a few times. It gives you 8 console ports, just like my Cisco unit. And like I was saying, it's the LX series InReach, which is the default username. Good to know. And on the back, you've got 8 console ports to plug into, also the RJ45 form factor. And this unit is pretty sweet. So locally in here, we're going to connect to this diag management, yet another serial port. But you put it on your network, and then you can access the other 8 ports over Telnet or a sweet Java GUI that I'll show you. And you can also dial into this thing. So it says telco line. I think you can like literally dial into this, with a modem and control it that way. I did like a really old video on this thing back when I didn't know what I was doing. I should revisit this thing. It's pretty cool. So I'll power this guy on in here with you just to show you what I did. So this is my USB to serial converter, and this is just an RS-232 to RJ45 adapter. I can't remember if I needed a null modem. We'll figure that out pretty quick. And then you plug it in and it just boots right up. This is another one of those guys that's meant to just run forever. It's booting up now. I think this thing is running a version of Linux from like 2004. It's got a PowerPC processor. It's a really interesting device. So we'll let it do its thing and then we'll log in and I'll show you the config I used. This thing says it's a console server, so maybe that's the terminology I should use. The login is InReach, and I think the password is access, all lowercase, if it's been factory reset, and it is. And then they copied the Cisco iOS CLI, so you do N to enable, and the default admin password is system. So here we are, and I think we can do setup. So yeah, would you like to run initial connectivity setup? I would. I already typed that password, but that's fine. So here, I've already got this thing set up as 10007 to get it in the retro rack. I don't know why I'm showing you this. Anyway, we're going to try this thing out. All right, we're going to go rack this guy up. Well, we'll probably just lay it in the rack. And we'll hook those Sun Fires up to it. We'll get it on the retro rack network. We'll boot up the rack. And I have like a narrative in my head for how this video is supposed to go, so hopefully this is all making sense. To recap, my existing console server setup could not talk to the Sun Fires. We need the Sun Fire to use the sun rays. This thing can. So we're going to go put this in the rack, we'll hook the Sun Fires up to it. Or, well, I have 2 in there, we're going to hook the one up we need, we'll get it on the network, we'll boot everything up, and I'll show you what I found. I've got that MRV laying on top of some servers in the rack over there, and the Sun Fire V240's LOM console is plugged into port 1. That is the server we need for these sun rays. And the retro rack is getting a little sophisticated. I can't actually just go flip on power switches in there. I have a 240 volt PDU, and I remotely control those outlets to turn things on. So I've got this little app that I can run to see the status of those outlets and turn them on or off. It's a little uninspired. It was what we in the business call vibe coding. So let's see if we can't make this thing our own. I would like to show the actual name of the item plugged into the outlet. So what you're seeing here is all 16 outlets, and I can flip them on or off when I press enter. We're not going to do that yet. And let's see if we can get like a name in there or something. All right, so I'm looking through my AI slop here. I already read this before. I'm just refreshing my memory. So there are 16 outlets. It's got this list of outlets, 16 of them. They're ints. And then eventually it formats the name right here. So what we're going to do is make something called names, I guess, which is a map of integers to string names. Yeah, I think that makes sense. Then we'll do, outlet 1 is something, outlet 2 is something else. I think you get the idea. And then I've actually been keeping track of everything that is connected to that PDU, what its machine name is, its host name, and which port it's on. So I'm gonna quickly translate this into my map over in the actual code, and then I'll show you what I'll do after that. Got my list here. Not everything has a name. So for example, outlets 7 and 8 are not in use. So we're gonna get really fancy, I guess, and write a little function, get name. It's gonna take an outlet in, return the string. Let's see if name, okay, names outlet, we'll return in. Otherwise we're gonna return unknown. So fancy. Okay. So down here, there was a couple places this thing might format our string, and we're just gonna pass it in like this. So let me back up. This thing we're looking at here is, and this one down here, I think, I need to refresh my memory on why it needs to do that twice, is formatting the item in the list. And right now it just has the outlet number and the state. So we're gonna add this custom name deal. And we'll pass that get name just like that. We'll do the same thing down here. This isn't going to be like the coolest looking thing ever, but I think it's going to look a lot nicer. Let's run that. And bam, now we've got names. I could deal with tabs and stuff. It's kind of clunky to have the off all staggered like that. We could clean this up, make a little table or something, but the point is we can turn all this stuff on now. So I'm going to power up the network just like this. This is how I do it. I'd also like to write some like macros and stuff and make outlet groups that I could power on and off. We'll give the V240 power, and we'll also turn on that MRV console server. And let's let everything boot up. I'll go in there and check on things and show you what's going on. All right, a little louder in here because all of this stuff is on, of course. And you can see a little light indicator. Well, that's a warning symbol. It's mad that it doesn't have 2 power supplies plugged in. But obviously, there is power going to this thing. It's not booted up yet. Our goal here is to get into the LOM. I'll show you the problems I was having with this one and how it's supposed to work. And then, of course, on the back of the rack, the MRV is all powered up. I've got it on the retro rack network. I think it's going into this switch here. And port 1 is plugged into this guy. Let's see if we can get in here, power this thing up, and get some sun rays going, finally. We'll do a little quick terminal console server primer to reiterate what I'm trying to accomplish here. So the Cisco terminal server is 10002. It is exposing a port that I can telnet into for each of those cables on the back. So for example, to hit the router in the rack, port 2002, I'm in. I can access this router over its serial console over the network, right? Now, the MRV is very similar. It just has slightly different ports. So port 1 on the MRV is 2100. It's IP, I set it obviously in the setup config, 10007. The Sunfire is hooked up to this port. And again, I'm getting that behavior that I wasn't expecting. I wanted to see the LOM, and Sunfire guys are going to be screaming at their screen probably this whole video. I was going to go on some huge adventure here and show you that You can actually see the ports with this crazy GUI that the MRV is hosting. And you can just go to port 1, for example, and connect to it right here over this Java app. But basically, I actually just need to do pound dot. I need to press the keys pound and dot because this Sun Fire V240 has the advanced Lights Out Manager, not just an LOM. You actually log into it, and what do you know? Full remote control. So I tricked you into watching 20 minutes of me dicking around with terminal servers. Now I've got 2 console servers in the rack, the MRV and the Cisco one. Whatever. I think it's power on. Power on. I can hear the machine coming up. We can remotely control this machine now. In the Sun world, you move between these different prompts. This is the LOM, and I can't even remember how to get to, there we go. I typed console. So now I'm at the console that's spitting out the progress of it booting up, and eventually we'll get to something called the OK prompt. From the OK prompt, we can boot the OS and so on. You can have them auto boot. I always set my Sunfires to not boot, so you can see we're just sitting here OK at the literal OK prompt. And I think I can just say boot, and it's going to go off and find its hard disk and boot into Solaris and run the Sunray server software finally. I'm editing this video now, and I don't know how many times I have forgotten that the LOM can time out and you have to pound dot to get back in, away from the console. There's kind of a triangle that Sun like to draw of all these different prompts you can be in. I've spent hours with these machines, and I have thought my serial connection was broken or something. I've troubleshooted it over and over again. I've done this like 5 times, and yeah, pound dot. So sorry to drag you on that journey, but hopefully it made for some good content anyway. It's up. SunOS release 5.10. I believe that is aka Solaris 10. Let's see if I remember my root password. That doesn't look good. It's taking too long. There we go. Okay, this is my Sunray server. Let's plug it into the RetroRack network. And I can't remember how to do networking on Solaris. There we go. It has been configured on my home network. So we will be changing the IP of this thing. Interface BGE0. Let me go look up how to do that. Well, let me go plug it in, then we'll look up how to do that. I'm going to try something new. There's this sysunconfig command. And am I going to regret this? I'm not going to do that. I also have this problem where I really just need to edit my Etsy host file, and BI does not want to start up in this telnet mode very well. I'll be back in a little bit. I think I got everything squared away, so in case you're curious, I was trying to edit Etsy hosts, and it shows up and it's all just nothing. And if you enter the vin command to turn on line numbers, set number, it works, and then you can start editing it. So if you ever have that problem. Anyway, this machine I've set to 10.0052. I think we can restart network. No. Reboot. Let's see if it picks up those changes. All rebooted. Let's do an ifconfig all. And that's looking right to me. Our interface is now 10.0052. Let's ping the router. We can see it. This machine I'm on here should be able to ping the Sunfire. Okay. Let's do nothing else and plug a Sunray into the network and see if it figures itself out. All right, finally, we're gonna power this thing on. I've got this going to the RetroRack network. Let's see, hopefully it at least gets itself an IP. I think there's several ways to set it up, but I think my setup is pretty default. I think they use DHCP to go off and try to find the Sunray server. Ooh, this monitor is blinking around. Yeah, so it knows it's connected to a switch. That's good. Obviously, that's further than we got last time. My power supply is only 4 amps and a little less than 12 volts, I guess. And this thing wants 5 amps. I wonder if that's why it's flickering and stuff now that it's using its network port. Come on. I think it just restarted. So far, so good. Oh, I just missed it. Obviously, It's working. So it says welcome to V240. That's of course the host name of my Sunray server. Right before I could get the camera on in time, it picked up an IP. It picked up 10.0.0.104 dynamically, found the Sunray server, probably over DHCP. And now the question is, what is my username and password? I think I have a clab user. And we're about to get our first Sunray session of the day in Solaris. I love this Java, Adobe Flash stuff in the bottom left-hand corner. Oh yeah, look at that. So this is a Linuxy thing, but the resolution of the session by default is too large for this particular Sunray, so you gotta scroll back and forth. Oh yeah, we got Quake 2 on this bad boy. It runs like terrible. Oh, let's get in here. Oh, you know, totally playable. Well, oh, I accidentally launched NetBeans. See, look how much fun we're having. Should we do some Java development? Comment down below if you used NetBeans IDE 4.1 back in the day. Real beauty. Well, this is almost going too well. I would like to see what this dual head stuff is all about on this one. So let me dig out 2 monitors and we'll get them set up here. It's going to be pretty cumbersome. Let's see what that does. I can't remember if I've ever actually tried that. Okay, finally got the new command center hooked up. No small feat. Took me a while. I was actually reviewing a video I had made when I picked this up and glued it back together. I had fired it up and it was also set with some VPN settings for Oracle, an IP that belonged to Oracle Japan. So this was also a Sun/Oracle unit. I guess no surprise with the DVT sticker on it, but that's kind of cool. And I had factory reset it at that time. I know it works, or it worked when parked 2 years ago, but I've never tried the dual head. I wonder if the server just figures that out. So it's all hooked up here. I'm gonna plug it in off camera. And it's powering up. Let's see what it does with these monitors. Well, both are powered. This is the main one. I chose that red, I guess. You can see this one has some Oracle branded firmware. After Oracle bought Sun Microsystems, they continued the Sunray line, continued supporting them anyway. Yeah, really interested to see what this thing does with this other monitor. It's obviously displaying something on it, which is good news. All right, got to the login screen. That one turned off. So I also don't know if this, oh man, this keyboard's weird. Give me a second here. I wonder if we're gonna have to get in there and mess with the server config. Oh, this is a nightmare. What am I looking at here? I don't remember what to do about this. Change desktop resolution. Let's blow it out. That is good. Keep. Yeah, look at that. Full screen. I wonder how Quake does. It's so bad. Okay, let me go do a little research and we'll take a look at the server config. Maybe you just have to do it there. Okay, we're getting into Sunray management territory here, and it's pretty overwhelming sometimes. So I am in opt SUNWut. All these UT commands are how you control the Sunrays and configure them server side. So I can do an ls in here, several UT commands. And then I'll also do an ls in a sibling folder called sbin, even more commands here. So the first thing we're going to do is view the sessions that are attached, the Sunrays that the server knows about. And let me find that. So UT session is how you deal with sessions, and you can list them. Each session has a token ID associated with it, and the terminals have a unique identifier, and this happens to be the MAC address. So I have 2 of these. I have nothing, I think there's other commands, but I can't remember them that make this a little easier. So I don't know which of these tokens, which is what I want, belong to which Sunray. So I cheated a little bit. And I'm looking at my router and what IPs it's handed out, and I know for a fact the Sunray 270 got assigned 10.0.0.104. Its MAC address ends in 42. And then there's this one down here, that 108, the last one that was assigned, and its MAC address ends in B1. And sure enough, we have a MAC address over here that ends in B1. So All of that is to say, this is the information for the 2FS that we're trying to get dual head on right now. I think I'm going to need that token. There's another command called UTX config. This is how you configure different aspects of the X server, the thing that's managing the visuals here. And every single one of these Sunray commands, almost all of them, are just so overwhelming with the options you can pass. So let's see, I'm going to try, I had tried it before and it worked. I'm going to take that token for our 2FS, the one we want 2 monitors on, and then I'm going to tell it to list out its attributes. So this is the current configuration for that thing, and I think we want to turn on something called Zinorama. I think this is a extension that allows the X server to have 2 monitors. In fact, I think I saw it in the documentation or the product brochure. Well, I kind of did for the wrong reason. It says it supports native dual head, quote unquote, similar to Zinorama. So I don't know if this is going to work. We'll see. Basically, we're just going to try turning on Zinorama and then soft restarting the Sunray server. So we're going to pass it X and then the word on, I guess. On. You must restart the Sunray session, which I think I can go do now. Let's try that. Right when you think you understand anything at all about these things, like a whole new set of commands and configuration issues shows up and you realize you know nothing. So I'm going to log out, not going to save my current setup, and then of course I'll log back in. And maybe, or maybe, probably not, we'll have 2 monitors. No, of course not. Yeah, still dead. I wonder if I get to change that here. No. Okay, well there's some other commands we can try. Doing a little more reading, the same UTX config. I'm seeing an example in the documentation saying configure a multi-head group with 2 screens right and left. So let's try this M on and then R and S stuff. The M stands for multi-screen, which seems good. The R was the geometry, so you could have like 2 by 2, 4 screens. We're going to want 2 by 1. And then the screen order list, which one's primary and secondary or something, I'm not sure. I think maybe we'll just try turning on multi-screen and seeing if it starts working, and the rest of this is just auto, for example. So I'm going to say M on, and then I'm going to go restart my session. Didn't work. Maybe I had to explicitly set that to auto. So we're going to run the long one, which sets up a 2 by 1, 2 monitors. Of course, restart the Sunray. I hope what I'm doing by logging out is truly what it considers restarting the Sunray session. Let's go try. Well, well, well. Logged out, immediately greeted with this. This monitor is in way worse shape than this one in terms of brightness. This doesn't seem ideal. Not a very cool setup. Let's see what the desktop actually looks like. I mean, you know, you would have been the talk of the town at the office with this bad boy. Look at this. Wow. It's running some sort of UTM-H screen thing that you probably don't want to mess with that. Let's fire up, I don't know, Star Office. Yeah, it just slaps it right in the middle. There must be a way to tell the X server to kind of like, you know, default applications over here, I would imagine. What am I making? Text document. Probably should have done like a spreadsheet. I feel like that'd be cool. Yeah, I don't know about this. You do truly have, you know, 2 screens though. It's nice looking. I'll give it that. I mean, it's sharp, looks good. Cool. All right. Let's see what's going on with the Java cards. I really opened mine up security settings wise a couple years ago when I was getting this stuff going. So let's see what happens. I think theoretically you should have to like assign yourself to a card, but I think I made it so that you can kind of just take the card over. Let's see. Interesting. So I've been given a different token. I was configuring the Cinerama thing, or the dual monitor for the one particular token, and it does not have that. So let's pull this card. It should kick us out. Weird. Then it comes back. All right, let's put the card back in. Okay, remembered who I am. Let's try logging out explicitly, I should say. Okay, so I shouldn't have a session on the server anymore. And let's pop this same card back in. I really don't remember how this is supposed to work. Nah. Okay, let's go learn how to assign a card to a username. Actually, it's kind of coming back to me. So I think I've previously assigned this card to the collab user. I'm pretty sure I got lucky and just pulled this out of the pile, the right one. And so what we can do is we're going to establish a session with the card. It actually remembers me now. Man, these things are so inconsistent, I would argue. So we'll log in and let's just like open up a folder. Let's open up this computer. Leave that there and then we'll pull it out. And then we'll take our card and go into here. Probably have to type a password. It remembers me. So we are about to hot desk, I believe. And there is my folder. So yeah, I don't have to type my username, but I still have to type a password. That's pretty reasonable. And we can hot desk a session back and forth with these. Let's go try to set up a fresh card and a fresh user. I'll walk you through that. It's a little involved. Almost forgot to show you this. It is hosting a management GUI on that V240. I can't remember if it lets you log in with root. It might not. I haven't used this much at all. I'm wondering if it's going to make my life easier and I don't have to dig through all of those commands. Oh man, I can't remember. I'm in. The default password for this was admin. You can see in the upper right there, and then a password I had set when I had configured the server long ago. So we can look at sessions. This guy's got plenty for some reason. Tokens. I think you need to configure a Sunray as a card reader to actually do this. Yeah, so I don't have a token read. What is going on here? I'm just looking around, sorry. Okay, I'll be back. All right, we're gonna do a step-by-step setting up a brand new user and associating it with a hot desking Java card. So the first thing we're gonna do is make a new user called collab retro with this command, and the name is too long. Can we make it shorter? CR. Perfect. Okay, we have a CR user now. And next, we want to associate this user with the unique identifier that's baked into one of these cards. But first, we need to figure out a way to read that unique identifier off the cards. Sun did something kind of cool. You can temporarily set up one of the terminals as a card reader. So I've got this one booting up right now. Just has power and network. I don't even need to plug a monitor into it. And we're going to go over to those UT commands, and we can tell this thing to be a reader and read tokens with it. We can use the UT desktop command to list all the desktops my server happens to know about. These are the MAC addresses. The documentation also calls them CIDs, something identifiers. And I'm using the same trick as before and seeing the MAC address of whatever pulled the latest IP, and it ends in 66. And there it is. That is our unique ID. I'm going to copy that to my clipboard. Then we'll use this UT reader command, no token readers configured. We can say UT reader add, and we can grab my little guy there, just like that, I think. And now we need to do a cold restart of all the services to turn that thing into a reader, and that is UT start cold. I seem to remember I might have to do a full restart. I haven't done this in a couple years, but it's going to restart everything, all the services running on the Sun Fire. And then we should be able to issue yet another command to read those tokens. So the cold restart worked. I can issue a UT reader and it knows about it now, but it just continuously complains about this UT dev manager or daemon can't listen on port 7011, and yeah, I don't have time to deal with that. I'm just gonna reboot the machine, whatever. Sunray server's back up, and we're just gonna take one of these third-party cards, I guess at random from the stack, just to prove that they can work. We'll put that in our dedicated reader here. Back on the server, we'll do a UT reader, and this is our guy that is configured as the reader that I just put the card into. And then we got yet another command. We're going to do UT user read, and then that guy. And so it says insert token into the token reader. There's already one in there. And there it is. It is a smart card focus, and then this unique ID, which is assigned to that card. So we're going to need that value. And then we're going to issue this lovely command, UT user again. We're adding one, the token, This thing accepts a bunch of arguments we don't care about, so we're leaving them blank. And then the username, and then enter, hopefully, UT user list. And there we go. These are the Sun branded cards I had previously assigned to a user, and here is my new one assigned to CR. I don't know what's going to happen because I never assigned CR a password. Let's try it out. I might have to assign the password on the command line, or it's just going to ask me, I guess. Let's get this in here. It's asking for my username. I don't have a password. Oh, did I set that with the command? I can't remember. All right, let me go set a password on this guy real quick. Okay, the password to CR is CR now. Okay, and this is the first experience you get choosing which desktop environment you'd like to run. So far, you've only seen Java Desktop System Release 3. Just for fun, let's do good old CDE. It's complaining about it. It's been deprecated and it's going to be removed, but that's okay. Oh yeah, so we're in. Well, let's see if we can hot desk properly. So I'll pull this out, come over to our other one here. That's looking promising. It knows that I'm CR. And we're in. We have officially set up a new user, assign them to one of these third-party smart cards, and hot desk with it. It can be done, but there's one important caveat I've got to show you. I have a special configuration on my server that allows these to work in the first place. Oh, and to set that initial password, I just used the regular old password Unix command, nothing special there. So now I'm in a folder called Etsy opt SUNWut smart card. And let's have a look in here. These are all the different configuration files for different types of smart cards. And out of the box, at least my Sunray server did not come with the configuration file you need for these. You have to kind of jump through some hoops and email them and get it. I'm just going to put it in a gist down below in the description. But it happens to be this SCF3 config file, and you'll kind of get an idea for what's going on there. It's literally just a text config file that teaches the thing how to use these cards. Then there's one other thing you got to do. In this folder, there is a file called probe order. And so if we take a look at that, you just need to add the file name, the .config file, into here, restart the services, and your card will start working. In the description below, I will link these exact instructions I just verbally went through with you about how to do this. It's very straightforward. Actually, I'm looking at this a little closer, and my config file is not in here. So maybe you don't need to worry about this probe order thing. I'm pretty sure it's important. It's like the order in which it checks for the cards to see if it supports it. Maybe this unknown card does something. Anyway, you know, you can experiment, figure it out. So there you go. We've got the Sunray server fully incorporated into the retro rack with that V240 running and all the associated networking gear. It's pulling 3 amps at 240 volts, which seems pretty good. I, of course, only leave that stuff on when I'm messing around with it, though. There's so much more you can do with these Sunrays, as you noticed from how dense each command is. So we'll definitely have more videos in the future. Please comment down below about ideas you might have of stuff I could cover. I've also got more than just these Sunrays. I've got a couple of the ones. I've got one other all-in-one that I'm looking at right now. But I hope you enjoyed following along. Sorry about the console server detour, but we did need to figure that out to get the V240 fired up properly. And I'm glad, actually, I have the MRV in the rack. I really liked that unit, and it was a nice excuse to get it racked up and put back into service. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing. It really helps the channel grow, and I've also got a Patreon where I post behind-the-scenes type videos and the occasional early release. That'll do it for this one. I hope you enjoyed some fresh Sunray content. It'd been a while since I'd messed around with these things, and I'll catch you in the next video.